Sometimes it helps to be like, you know what, fuck it, I quit. And just kind of like mentally imagine what it would be like to stop everything.
And you start the TikToks and you see virality.
I think in the first hour, it had hit 200,000 views, and then by the end of the day, it was at 1 million views, and we're like, what is going on?
Lubalin is a Canadian musician, producer, and viral TikTok star known for blending alternative R&B with comedic internet parodies, amassing millions of followers through his internet drama series.
So you've put a pause on...
There's a pause on
Okay.
it. Yeah. Number priming is a bitch. Bigger number, much bigger number. Like, I get it, but when you're promoting a song, sometimes the numbers are lower. There's something that I'm chasing that makes me keep picking the hard way. I need some kind of insane, impossible thing always.
So what are you not doing right now that you want to be doing?
Oh my God. I am...
So the podcast has been an incredible journey where my passion can meet my utility finally. And that's been probably one of the best feelings because I come into the studio, I sit down, I have a conversation with an incredible gent like yourself and get to learn about you and really just talk. And so on that note, Lubalin, or Luba as you go by sometimes,
Yep.
Welcome to Gents Talk.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have this conversation. I want to know more about you because my fiance loves your TikTok videos.
Thanks.
I remember her just showing them to me and going, look at this guy who's just making these videos, but they're so funny and you can't turn away. And I'm like, okay, let's see this. And I would watch them and I would just start laughing. But you're here because you're also now into the music space, which is really cool. Like it speaks to this concept of we're multidimensional. We have a lot of different creative outlets. But for those who don't really know who you are outside of what they've seen publicly, who are you?
It's funny. I have a song. This chorus is "Who am I? Don't know." It's great. It's a great question. I'm always asking myself. I just have different things that I find exciting. I find magic in a lot of different things, and I think I just want to share what I see with people. And I think those TikToks were just like an extension of that as well. It was just like, I think this is funny, and let me show you how I read it, sort of in my mind, like how it feels to me. And I think that's a little bit what I do in everything. I find things that I like, and I try to frame them. I try to contextualize them. It's a bit of curation. It's a bit of creativity. But also I just like to sit and just explore, and like for myself, and then kind of go like, is this a thing, and share that with the world. Yeah.
What were you doing before you started? So you're, just for context, for people who don't know, your TikToks completely blew up during the pandemic, like went super viral.
Yeah.
Prior to that, what were you doing?
So I was making music as Lubalin.
So you're already a musician.
I was already a
point.
musician. Yeah. For my whole life, I've been making music. So it is kind of funny because those TikToks, I was just like, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to make some TikToks. This TikTok thing seems to be, popping off. And so messed around with some different covers and stuff, and then came up with that idea after watching somebody like turn the ingredients on a soup can into a song. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's a cool idea. And I thought I'd get, a couple 100,000 views, hopefully, and maybe it would help build my audience a little. But then it was so successful that it became me, and so a lot of people see me as the guy who made TikToks, who is now making music or whatever. But like, really, it was a little pit stop on the way. And it kind of snowballed into the center of my career. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because if I literally just introduced you that way.
Yeah.
Because that's how I first came across you.
Totally. And that's like, that makes sense, right? Like that's how we understand the world. We you need a simple story to grab onto, and I'm blessed to have one, right? Like that's what gets me in the door in a lot of places. Like, oh, it's the guy, you know him from this, and then I can start, talking and sharing other stuff, which is why it's great to be here too and have these kind of longer form conversations and
look at all the other stuff I could do.
Go beyond the top line, because to be honest, like what that is, I think, and I'm like realizing more and more, is just another facet of the way that I do everything. Actually,
So, was the music career going anywhere before the TikToks?
It was a lot harder. Yeah. I must have had maybe 600 Instagram followers. Yeah. Okay. It was like
a lot of work.
Yeah. It had been, I think, a year or two since I had started making music as Lubalin. So it was still, I mean, it's, it's hard. But since then, I've also grown so much as an artist. The new project is, have been elevated by all the different people that I've worked with since then. So yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It's like, I just always want to be growing. Like I always want to be leveling up. So yeah, it's funny to look back and think about it. It is a different artist almost,
It's a different persona.
Yeah.
Okay, you're doing the music career, wasn't really producing the results you had hoped for. And then you start the TikToks and you see virality. Like when we talk about creators going viral, you're an example of that. And you said, to quote you kind of took a pit stop in this area.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point where you thought maybe I'm just not going to re-pursue the music career, or was that always something you were going to do no matter what?
I think that for me, it was never an option, but I could feel this kind of like, even if no one really said it, although I'm sure in the comments people have said it, but like you feel the kind of like society kind of, hey, you found a thing that works, and that's really hard to find, and you found it, like, are you not gonna keep pushing that button like over and over until nothing comes, like, you know what I mean, like, and then try to level
exhaust it as much
like
as
just
possible.
Squeeze that thing, right? And I think we could have, and I say we because my partner helped film the videos, and she's she's the funny one, I always say, but like we could have kept squeezing that, but like it was really fun. It was fun every time, and I knew if we started feeling like it was a burden, like we had to do it, like every single one we did felt like a bonus. It was like, yeah, let's do another one. It was also really hard to find the content. It's like, it's not anything that will work. It has to be short. It has to be really funny in a way that I like, but it also has to be light, like we could have done politics, but I never touched that because I felt like there's enough of that. And we had such a nice vibe in the comment sections. I wanted to preserve that. I wanted it to be, there's not to say there's anything wrong with that. I love taking in that kind of content and hearing about that, but I felt like let's make something that has nothing to do with that,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was getting harder to find content too, and it was just kind of like, and then it's like the brand deals are coming in, but then sometimes, not to get too deep into it, but sometimes certain companies, you're like, do I want to like lend my voice to this? And then at some point it was just like, I have a vision for these other things, and that's what I wanted to do this whole time, and that never went away, So for now we're back on the music, and it's also like, again, in that sense of like people understand you through a story. And now it's like, well, if we keep doing both in parallel, we might have a hard time with this new story, which is like Lubalin's got an album coming out. Lubalin's got these songs, it's got a show and all these things. So, so it's like, it's not that we'll never do it again.
So you've put a pause on.
There's a pause on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how is the feedback from the community you've cultivated?
I would say overwhelmingly positive.
Oh, good.
There are absolutely, like, the audience isn't as big, of course, right? Because what we did with the dramas was like kind of universal almost, like inadvertently, like we made something that almost everyone could enjoy, I think. And so obviously like that doesn't necessarily Venn diagram 100% with my music. So we're transferring, we're getting some of the people over, and then also gaining new fans who like find the music and then go, oh, you made these other things. That's crazy.
Do you struggle with you mentioned the results are not the same. Do you struggle seeing, I mean, there's a lot of there's a high that comes with hitting that kind of virality.
Oh, yeah.
And then to come down from that a little bit, because you're not only are the videos performing differently, but it's a whole new thing. I mean, a new thing relatively. You've done it prior, but like a lot of people in that scenario go, it's one thing to even take the leap into trying something new. It's another when you're now looking at the results and going, it's not the same. How do you balance that?
Yeah, it is definitely not always easy. Number priming is, can we swear on this podcast?
Absolutely, please.
Number priming is a bitch. And when you have videos that, you know, are going 10, 20, 40 million views, you get like 200,000 views and you're like, damn, we flopped. And it's like, okay, reality check, right?
Yeah.
I think we're kind of in the process now also of like reassessing what is success, you know, because numbers are easy to understand. Bigger number, much bigger number. Like, I get it. Yeah. That's better. But when you're, you know, promoting a song through the same channel, like short form, the way short form works, right, is no one gives a shit who made the video. They just want to be entertained. That's how the algorithm works. It's all about retention and it's about entertainment, which means you really can't like put a secondary message in your video. Like, you can't, like, as soon as you start talking about something else, people are gone. And so the dramas work well because there is no other purpose to them. They are purely like for their own purpose. Then when you try to like go to my Spotify, no, forget it, you know? So then you have to kind of think of like, okay, well, what we want is not necessarily a piece that's going to reach the most people, because doing that is probably going to be a piece that serves itself as opposed to the music. So now it's like, okay, well, how do we like build brand and bring creativity? Like, I'm trying to not just do like promo content, but like it's like treat it like an art form as well, and kind of go the extra mile to like make it interesting, but also be an extension of Lubalin and my art. And so we're accepting that like sometimes the numbers are lower, but then when you look at the comments, they're not commenting about the joke from the video, they're commenting about the music and how much they love it and how much it means to them. And so that's what I mean when I say like overwhelmingly positives, like a lot of like people just connecting to the music, and the like handful of comments that are like, please make another drama. It's like, I don't mind, you know, I get it. I love them too, you know, like I would never take anything away from those videos. So, but yeah.
You did an interview, and forgive me because I can't recall the name of the outlet or publication that you did the interview with, but you talked about the challenge of balancing virality when it's so quick. So your account, you said, you know, 600 on Instagram to suddenly seeing 40 million viewed videos and whatnot, and the number of follower growth that came with it, and suddenly there's a demand for more. When you're servicing that many people, there's just like a constant, how do you supply more and more and more? That can be a very exhausting place to be in.
Oh yeah.
How did you balance your mental well-being, because you talked about that being the challenge?
Yeah, there's definitely a kind of a treadmill effect, and I think that we didn't always succeed at balancing it. I think it was a journey. It still is a journey, honestly. My partner and I, we work, you know, around the clock. We work like, what's a weekend? We don't, you know, if it wasn't for the meetings and all the stuff, I wouldn't know what day of the week it is. It doesn't matter to me. You know, we're just always doing our thing. And so we have had to like kind of over and over again protect the time to like take care of ourselves and to make sure that our routine stays on track. And so like, you know, right now we've done a good job. Like, we've stacked it. So like the mornings are protected creative time, and then like lunch is always together, and then we always go for a walk before lunch. It's like a 40-minute, like there's a lot of like protected moments in the day. And then sometimes there's emergencies and those things get trampled, or like the walk is just business talk the whole time. And you know, like, so it's always like, it's always slipping away from you, right? Entropy is always taking place. And so every now and then it's like we're about to like explode, and it's like, okay, what the fuck is going on? Stop everything. And you always have to, anytime you have to stop, it's always in the moment where it's like, we cannot stop. And that's when you need it the most, right? And so it's like, okay, stop everything. What is going on? What really matters? What are the priorities? And we're both like super ambitious. We're both like overachievers. Everything has to be perfect. And everything matters and everything's important, you know? And so, yeah, it's just like sometimes getting that reality check of, hey, like everything can't happen all at once. Things take time. Resources are limited. And, yeah, just kind of, sometimes it helps to be like, you know what, fuck it, I quit. And just kind of like mentally imagine what it would be like to stop everything.
What's that like?
It could be freeing. Even though like very quickly I remember like, oh yeah, you're never going to stop, dude. Like I would have stopped a long time ago. Like I think I've always picked the hard way, you know, even so with the dramas, it's like the easy way would have been keep pushing the button, take the brand deals, take the money, build an empire, or just build a retirement. Like it could have been any other way, but I wanted to do this thing. And like, even, you know, I could have gotten a good job. I could have been a programmer, you know, there's a lot of like paths I could have taken I'd be very comfortable, and I could have like time for leisure and like all these, you know, I could have a nice life, but, and I have a nice life, not to say, you know, but,
yeah,
but like there's plenty of other ways to make lots of money and be happy. But there's something that I'm chasing, that makes me keep picking the hard way. Or I'm just making it hard for myself subconsciously. Who knows? Like,
I wonder if that thing that you're chasing, have you been able to externalize it and isolate it and say it is X?
Every like few months, maybe like twice a year, I try to like what the fuck is it that I want? Like, come on, like what is all this, you know? At some point I was like, oh, like I had it down to a sentence. It was like, I just want to make cool shit with cool people. I was like, that makes sense. That I love that. That's some of my favorite memories, right? Are like making cool shit with cool people. And then I did that, you know, worked on half of 99 Nights with Charlotte, and producing and co-writing, and came off of that, and it's like, there's another path, you know, there's another kind of, it's not easy, but like there's another route I could have gone. Is like, okay, from this success of this project, I could go and start writing and producing for lots of other artists and like bounce around room to room. But there's like, and it's fun also to like support someone else's vision, because then the weight isn't on your shoulders. Like there's nothing more fun than like throwing ideas at someone else and they're just like, yes, no, 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 yes, no. And so you don't have to worry. You just keep spitting stuff out. And as long as some of it sticks, it's good. And so that's really fun. So, which is weird. I just keep, it sounds like I'm infinitely contradicting myself, but somehow I just keep coming back to like, no, I need to like have my vision and bring it to life. And I think one of the things that's been on my mind for a long time is like a great album. I want to make a really great album. And I think probably no matter what album I make, I'll always want to make an even greater one.
So it makes me want to ask you then, are you saying everything you've just said out loud and hearing yourself say it? When you finally, I'm confident given the nature of how you seem to operate, that you're going to achieve the thing that you're after. But I'm curious, when you finally achieve that thing, whether that goalpost just moves even further and further, so you'll never really achieve the thing that you want. And I've had conversations with people who've described that, and I have reflected myself on that thing for me, where because the goalposts is constantly moving further and further, you're never really satisfied, and it's not a very good state to be in.
Yeah, no, it's I'm pretty sure the goalposts will keep moving.
So when does Lubalin get to finally sit back, relax and go, now I could rest on my laurels?
I just want to say, I have the voice in my head that goes, hopefully never.
Interesting.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I love it. I just love, I think I need something to be chasing after. I need the North Star that I'll never reach.
Yeah.
I need a reason to take steps forward, you know? I need some kind of insane, impossible thing always. And I think whenever what I'm doing, there's two ways there's two things that happen that make me want to stop something. One is I stop believing that it's possible, which I do all the time. I come back and forth on that. And the other is it's too easy. And I know what the result's going to be, and it's going to be fine. And then I have to I've got to do something else. That's maybe another reason why I'm not doing the dramas. It's like, I know if I get the right piece of content and I do it right, like it's just going to work. I'd be curious. It might not work anymore, right? Like the algo has changed, the like audience, like everything's different now. But yeah, I think I always want to be chasing something great. And otherwise I don't know what to do with myself, you know? Otherwise I just make up things.
So is it the chase that drives you?
I think so.
More than the actual achievement of the thing? I mean, I'm sure that to go from like 600 followers on Instagram to hitting a viral video on TikTok, there's a dopamine rush that happens there.
Yes.
And then that immediately goes away and you want more. And then you're just chasing. You're caught in that cycle. So for you, is it the chase?
I think so. I think it's the process of cracking it, of like figuring it out. The satisfaction is very brief. I mean, it was longer when it was, you know, like that first one was like, I think in the first day, I think in the first hour it had hit 200,000 views and we were like, oh shit, it's not stopping. And then by the end of the day it was at 1 million views and we're like, what is going on? Like that was dopamine, but honestly, like maybe like poisonous. Maybe not the first time because it was just, there was so much going on. But like after a while, it's like you post a video, ooh, it's doing well. Ooh, like the next day it's like, oh, it's still going. And the third day it's like, okay, it's slowing down. And then like, you know, like this is, and then like by day 4, your brain is just sapped. There's no dopamine left. And it's just like, it's a huge hangover. So now when I post things, I don't even look. Like if I'm on my good behavior, I stop looking at the stats. And when I realize like I'm in a bad state of mind, it's like because I'm like autopilot looking at stats. I'm like bouncing between all the apps. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, are you, you know, rating your worth? Are you gauging like it's just, yeah. I think the stats are like, it's like a drug.
It's a hard, you know, from the outside, people will look at the accounts and the views and everything and go, wow, here's a creator that's doing extremely well complaining.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said about the dopamine rush followed by the hangover, followed by the fact that your brain is just drained from constantly refreshing the different apps, looking at how it's doing, comparing it to a previous post, making you wonder whether your next one that you already had planned is going to work, and then also secretly comparing yourself to other creators who might be in the same space as you and seeing what they're doing. And it's just this constant like ping pong inside your head. You're done. You're like emotionally, mentally drained by the end of it.
Fried, 100%. Yeah, it's maybe an occupational hazard. Yeah, like it's crazy. And like like I'm like, don't get me wrong, right? Like not complaining. Like it's a great, but I think you have to manage it. You have to be thoughtful about it because it will suck you in and you won't even notice.
So what guardrails have you put in place, whether it's for yourself, with your partner, together, because you said that she's part of this whole thing.
Yeah.
What guardrails have you put in place to protect you from getting to the point where you're emotionally drained for 4 days because you spent that much time just refreshing a single video?
It's a good question. It should probably be more fleshed out than it is. Right now, I almost like, I don't feel like I need quite the rules, but like when we post, we sit down together. I handle some of the platforms, she handles some of the platforms, and everything is planned out ahead of time. So like all the captions and the hero comments and all that stuff is like pre-figured out because it's somehow like way less anxiety inducing to figure it out ahead of time than to sit down and do it in like right before you post.
Right.
And then we post, and then we go for a walk, like pretty much right after. Like we check comments like early on in case someone's like, this whole video is muted, or like, you know, something's wrong.
Yeah.
And also like the early comments tend to be the sweet ones, and then like the longer it goes, the more you get like the randos showing up. Actually, the first comments are the spam bots, but the second round of comments are the sweet people, the sweet fans. So we check out their comments, but and then like I think like I kind of learned like, oh, there's nothing for you there. Just stop looking. Like it's not. And also like, you know, I have people on my team who are like keeping an eye on that stuff for me, and who are kind of strategizing and thinking about it. So it becomes easier. But like I did like a YouTube panel like with like other creators in Montreal. I think it was last year with alongside Gurki and Marianne Bizance, I think. Amazing interior designer, and the other one does like food reviews and that kind of thing. And the audience was asking questions, and then I like realized like they didn't know their like click-through rate, and I was like, hang on a second. And I was like, how often do you guys check your stats? And both of them were like, never. And I think, and these guys have been in it for years. They've really like and I think like it's the only way. At some point as a creator, and like obviously like they're in a position they don't have to look. When you're starting out, you have to know what's going on. But at some point, you have to come to a place where you just don't look. I think.
I'm fascinated by all of this because it makes me wonder, you know, like, so when we post content for the podcast, for example, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like constantly refreshing, like, how's this one doing?
Yeah.
And then transparently, and this is the first time I say this out loud, you know, we do these collab reels with our guests when we're promoting that an episode has dropped, and sometimes I'm like, if a reel doesn't do well, I'm like embarrassed, and I'm like, they're never gonna want to work with me again, and like I start to internalize all of this, and I have to stop and remember that there's so many different reasons why it's not popping off yet. It could be time of day, it could be whatever.
Totally.
And I have to stop internalizing that, but it's something that I struggle with because I'm constantly creating the content for the podcast. And I'm trying to find a way to not look at the stats and just go, is the art form, the creation, the product, is that still, did I put my all into that? If the answer is yes, 200, 2,000, 200,000 shouldn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Easier said than done.
So much easier said than done, but I think you hit the nail on the head, right? Like at the end of the day, like, I mean, even when I look at my favorite content creators, and there's like I have two parallel thoughts going on right now, but they connect, and so because you kind of said like you're afraid that people will judge you on those numbers, so they'll never want to work with you again. And I think, for me, when I think of that for myself, it's because I've been judging other people by their numbers, and not to say that I don't know if that's your experience or not, but like,
yeah, absolutely.
You
look at the numbers
in the business, like you're comparing, and so then you just imagine that people are looking at you through the lens that you would look at them, and then you know what you're doing, like what your vision is, where you're going with it, and your own potential, hopefully, most of the time. And that other people don't, and so what you do or don't look like. And anyway, but the other thought is gone. But it's okay. Yeah, it's
we were talking about like how, I'm worried that people won't want to work with me if they see the number because it didn't pop off for whatever reason. It could be a number of factors that prevent it.
And then loving what you made.
Yes.
And so lately, I'm trying to judge creators on, do I love what they made? Or can I tell that like they put their heart into it? And actually my favorite content now often is like, oh, you had to really not care to make this piece. This piece defies all the rules. And then like if it didn't work, hey, you're trying, And if it did work, like, oh yeah, like you
deserve that.
Like you made something that you believe in, that's your vision, that's so cool. And people agree. Well, and like, by the way, like the algorithm, people agree in the sense of like they gave it the watch time that like it's not a reflection of whether or not something's good, but there's a Venn diagram.
Yeah.
But But yeah, and I'm trying to apply that to my stuff too. It's like, you know what, let's stop thinking about what's going to work and start thinking about like what is interesting to me, what's fun, you know, like where is the magic?
So what are you not doing right now that you want to be doing?
Oh my God. Everything. I always want to be doing everything. I am on to the next one in my head. It's probably not the right thing to say while promoting one album. I love this album. This album is great, you know, but I'm like, once it's done, it's like, I need to be thinking about the next one. So,
well, I've heard of artists who are building 2 albums simultaneous to each other.
mm-hmm.
And as they're building some pieces, they'll say this one is actually better suited for that second one, and they'll park it for that one type of thing.
Yeah. I think that's kind of what happened with this album too. And then I was listening to Motomami by Rosalia, and I realized that there's kind of 2 albums in there too, but they're fascinating because it's a duality. So like Motomami has some songs where they are very simple sounds, these tiny little vocal samples and drum samples, but they're creating all this complexity and chaos. And then there's other songs where it's very rich, complex sounds. Like you've got Corey Henry, one of the greatest organ players, but he's playing the simplest parts. So you have rich complexity, simple kind of form, and then you have like super simple sounds, complex form. And so like when we talk about light, if we start talking about dark, we're still having the same conversation.
Yeah.
And so when I was making the album, and I had at some point I was like, fuck, this is 2 albums. And I started kind of categorizing them, and I realized like that instinct, that human, we always want to like, these belong together and these are the same, you know, we always want to filter, but actually there's a dialogue. And so the album is kind of like 2 sounds that like talk to each other. But there's also there's a lot of songs that didn't quite make this album because they just still didn't make sense in that narrative, that I know like there's another project for them. And there is kind of like, these ones kind of, something's happening here, and now I'm like starting to build out a storyline and that thing. But yeah.
What are you hoping people hear? Maybe not hear. What emotion do you want people to feel when they hear your music? What's your goal?
I guess whatever you feel is when you once I'm done with it, you know, whatever you feel is valid. Whatever you think the song's about, that's what it's about for you, and that's cool. I think what I'm often chasing is taking 2 things that you don't usually feel at the same time and trying to make you feel them simultaneously. Which like connects again to like why I feel like the dramas are just an extension of what I'm always doing. Like the dramas are like, let's take something stupid and make it beautiful. And in the process, you find a whole new dimension. It's like, it's not adding, it's multiplying. You get like, you have there's a human experience in there that you get to kind of take in. And so I think that's kind of what I'm doing. You know, the first song on the album is called Dog, and it's actually secretly a very dark, it's a very sad piano ballad that has been dressed up as a big drum and bass pop record. And I love it because it's like the chorus is, I don't know how to find peace. I don't know how to find the stillness that I need. But when it hits while you're driving, it is cathartic. It is peaceful. And so it's like maybe in admitting that you can't find peace, there's peace within that. And that's like, I don't know, like that's magic. So like I'm looking for those kinds of, that's where the magic is for me. Yeah. I don't know if that answers your question.
I mean, it answers it in the only way it can. Like cool. As an artist, you're creating something, you're creating art, and how I receive it is dependent on a number of factors that's outside your control.
Totally.
My emotions that day. Did I sleep well? Am I in the mood for this kind of music? All sorts of stuff like that. But I wanted to actually go back a second because a thought popped into my head. We talked about guardrails, You talked about how you and your partner have been putting in the work together. You're both ambitious. Sometimes you don't know what day of the week it is because you're just working so much.
Yeah.
Where is there room for you and your partner to just have your authentic relationship when you're working together? And I've had conversations like this in the past where when you're working with your partner, sometimes there's no clear line between when you're working and when you're not working, and one can take over the other.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a conscious effort that has to, when you both want something real bad and you have a whole team of people helping you and moving things forward, there is no slowing down. And excuse me. And so how do you? We never stop working, right? Like there's always an opportunity to talk about something. I think sometimes we'll just call it, like if we're like eating and it's like we're talking shop and it's like just stress and it's like, all right, let's just enjoy the meal and we'll talk about it after. Like we'll make room for it. I think we also like we're trying to go on like a real vacation, which is something we've more or less never done. You know, like maybe like 3 days. You know, so like we try to like take some time once.
How dare you?
Yeah, you know what I mean. Like whoa. Yeah, well, what's crazy is when everything's rolling, 100 miles an hour, you could force like a day of rest, and then the next day when you get back into it, it's like, fuck, this would be a lot less stressful if we had done some of this yesterday. And then you remember, and then the next time you go like, we should really rest. It's like, yeah, but then it's going to sting later. So you have to kind of, what we're trying to figure out is like how to like see far enough to kind of like pull the all-nighters now so that like we don't have to later.
Yeah.
But that's really hard to do because, all of our minds are constantly changing. We're all figuring it out. A lot of firsts are happening right now. It's my first album. Like, I got my first show coming up. There's a lot of stuff going on. So nervous. Yeah.
You don't hear a lot of artists talk about that, but every single one experiences it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I mean, so I'm excited. Like, I think the show is going to be great. I have a great team around me. My creative director, JB Blue, is like really into shows and stuff. And he's like, I've been waiting for this since the start, man. Like, let's figure this out. Yeah. And I think together we're figuring it out, and with my partner as well. And with the team, I've got great support. But, I have spent a lot of my life saying to people, like, I'm not a singer. I'm a producer who uses his voice. So like I'll do like 40 takes and I'll comp them together. I'll record the song slow and then just speed it up. I will, auto-tune, pitch correction, like every trick in the book. And to me, I don't see it as cheating. I'm just trying to make the best record I can, right? With the tools that I have. I'm an artist. I just use the tools to make the things I want to make. And that's no secret. Like there's a difference between, as long as I can get it once in 40 takes, I'll be okay. And I need to get it right like 39 out of 40 times. And so I'm trying to like embody this identity of like, okay, I'm a performer, I'm a singer, I've got a vocal coach who's amazing, who's like, I feel the progress, I'm growing. It's a transformation.
When you're on stage though, that's a 1-for-1 shot at it.
Exactly. Especially because the first show, so luckily it's only 20 minutes.
Okay.
So, and it's a showcase. So there's there's other artists, and each one, I think there's like 3 of us, two or three of us that night, and we each get like 20 minutes. Yep. Maybe the last artist gets a longer set, and half the room is industry people.
Okay.
So it's like an 800 capacity room. So about half of the room is industry people who are kind of there to judge what you're doing.
Sounds like it.
It's like it kind of doesn't feel like the best context for consuming art, right? Like anytime you're consuming art from a like, is this good perspective, like.
And how many of them are standing there not saying anything or moving their bodies and just staring at you?
God only knows,
and
right?
You can't really feed off that.
Yeah, and then you have to like pretend that you're feeding off something, and then which like happens in interviews too. Like sometimes like an interviewer, you're just like, okay, like they're just doing their job, which is fair. Like everyone's got to do their job. But if I have to pretend like I'm getting the like vibe, you know, and then like I come out of that and I just feel like, oh, it's the worst. So, but I think it's gonna be great. But I'm figuring that challenge out, and it's terrifying because it's like, in some ways I feel like I'm just getting started on a part of my career that other artists are, you know, have been doing since the beginning. But at the same time, it's like, it's exciting. It's a new beginning, and I get to crack a new puzzle. So yeah, I'm trying to always see it in the positive light, but sometimes it's too scary.
What does your inner circle look like?
Very tight. I have, you know, obviously my partner. I have my creative director, JB Prou. I have at the label so the label is also my management. So I have Jason Brando, who is Charlotte and I's mutual manager, and he's a great songwriter and creative person. And he's really good for like I'm a like doubt everything. I'm a like turn every stone. What about this? What about that? And he's a very like, it's this. And then, but like quick to make up his mind, but also quick to change it. So that's great, because I can just be like, but what about this? And then he'll be like, oh, well then it's that. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I can like, you know, operate. I can live. Yeah. Then I have Ellie, who's like my day-to-day and who takes such good care of me, and she's, you know, managing stuff and just making sure everything's moving, and she's my champion inside the label. And then on the label side, we've got Jan and Lori and Marie-Sam, and
so all these people Audrey. Are in your inner circle.
I mean, I don't know if this is inner circle, but like I guess we're starting to extend out. But I
mean, like, who outside of your partner?
Yeah.
Okay, let me rephrase the question. What does your friend circle look like? Like, who are the people in your life, and you don't have to name them or anything, but just who are those people that you can turn to when things aren't going well, you're challenged, you're struggling, you need to turn to someone, you need to vent, you just need a night out, a bite to eat?
It's a good question. I do have friends, I promise. No, I do have,
I believe you.
I do have friends. And I think the truth is, like, we're always so busy working that a lot of my friends are the people I work with.
Okay.
But I have great relationships with those people. You know, when Jason comes over to work on music together, you know, we end up spending like 7 hours, the first 3 of which are just like talking about concepts and philosophy and AI and what's going on with you. And he's working on the company and he's telling me stuff, and I'm telling him like how I'm panicking. And then he's, you know, but then like I have like some old friends as well that we keep in touch, and we text all the time, see each other at Christmas. And
do you find that with the old friends in particular that they look at you differently or treat you differently because of the social presence, the public persona?
No, I don't. I mean, a little, I'm sure, you know, in a way. I mean, all of them, I'm sure would just say like, yeah, we knew it would happen, you know, like this kind of people. But I think at the end of the day, it's like we're still who we are. We've all grown also, obviously, you know, we've all kind of gone down our different life paths, and that's kind of fun to see how everyone kind of made their own way. No, I think the only thing that changed from like having like numbers on the board was like my own confidence meeting people I don't know, people who don't know what I do or what it was like, suddenly it was like, oh, everyone, there's just like automatic respect, and it changed how I feel in that same way that like when you like look at the numbers and you're like, oh, these people are judging me, and it was like for at least a hot minute there, it was like, oh yeah, they can't really, you know, they can't say shit, you know, which I don't know if it was healthy or not, but I feel like there was part of it that was healthy. It was like, hey, you're you're good at what you do. Like, it's okay. Like, you know, and not like kind of being like, am I an idiot? Like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? It's like, now it's like, oh, okay. You know, proof's in the pudding now.
Yeah. I want to end the conversation off with asking you, what is one piece of practical advice you would give someone who's in the process of building their art form, whatever that is, but that same practical advice was one that you could have used when you were starting?
I think okay, let's go with this. Especially if it's like a creative practice and you're trying to like figure out like what your thing is, or you're trying to make something great. You would be surprised how many ideas get thrown out. I think that great art is so much more about curation. And so I think in a way, what a lot of great people do, and what I've seen people do, is like just generate so many ideas. And never, it's like, it's attachment and detachment. So be attached to what you're making in the sense that you're passionate, you care about it. No one's going to care more than you about the thing. So you got to fucking love it. But detachment in the sense of like, if there is a idea that doesn't, you could love it, you could be obsessed with it, but if the greater vision of what you're doing, it is better when you remove it, let that shit go. And trust that, you know, that's not your last good idea. You know, if you like, the more bad ideas you come up with, the more good ideas you come up with, and you'd just be surprised like how many things get thrown out in the process of making something good. So just keep making stuff, and then get good at knowing which things to keep. Curation. Yeah, that's hopefully useful to somebody.
Lubalin, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you. This was great.
This was fantastic. I enjoyed every minute of it. I like to have these conversations where it's just like, let's talk about, you know, your journey and what people don't know about you. And it's so fascinating to me. I think the biggest takeaway is you know, you may be known for one thing, but there's a whole other person behind that one thing. And I think it reinforces that idea that we are creative, complex human beings with, you know, when they tell you to pick your niche, you're kind of a walking contradiction to that in a good way.
Thank you. Although sometimes I'm like, okay, you should just pick a thing. But yeah, but you know what? And this was awesome. And I think your questions were great. And what I'm grateful for in this interview is getting to like kind of like what I was saying before we started, like get into the shit and like talk about real stuff, you know, not to take anything away from the other interviews, but it's nice to have the time and the space and someone who's genuinely interested and curious to get to kind of talk about these things that I think sometimes are, you know, glossed over or you know, that are not as easy to clip and soundbite and go viral.
Yeah.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
No, thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate your time. Good luck with everything you're doing. Good luck with the show. You're gonna kill it.
Thanks.
You're gonna rock it. And let's keep in touch, as I would love to follow this journey along. And you know, after your show and after you do many, 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 many more shows, and then once you're on to your next venture, maybe we could do a part 2 as well.
I would love that.
Amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.